This program are those of the commenters alone. They do not represent the views or opinions of Valley News Live, our parent company, or our advertisers.
Welcome back. With me tonight, North Dakota Tax Commissioner Cory Fong. Mr. Fong, is the season. Thanks for being here with us live in studio. I want to start here. Recently, Governor Dalrymple was testifying on his obviously proposed property tax relief that he's proposing for this session. But he said this, and this is reported by the Forum. It says, the bill achieves substantial property tax relief, although it should not be seen as a property tax relief bill. In your opinion, why would he say that?
Well, I think, this bill is really an education bill. It's about adequacy and equity for school funding, but it also has in it a significant property tax relief. And so I think the governor, again, was trying to emphasize that this is an education proposal primarily. That's where it started. That's really how it's been created, is through the education process or development of education policy. The Education Committee is the committee that heard it for the most part on the House side, and now it's into the Senate. But it is a tax bill, and I think to that point in the Senate side, it's going to be a joint hearing between the Tax Committee and the Education Committee. So within that bill, again, it's kind of like the current program, our mill levy reduction buy down on steroids. I mean, it's basically saying, okay, we're going to add to the current mill levy reduction buy down, which is all through schools, school funding, and we're going to add to that about 40 mills. Now, that's what the House proposal has, is an additional 40 mills. The governor's original proposal was another 60 mill buy down on top of the current 75. And so I think that's going to be probably the discussion as it plays out in the Senate side, is just how much should be the additional buy down.
So essentially, it's about $714 million the state's going to put towards this, and it caps the mill levies at 60. Is that accurate?
Actually, it's about $732 million, as I understand, and it caps mill levies at 70. Again, the governor's proposal originally would have capped mills, local spending at 60 mills. But again, there was some changes made by the House. But again, I think you're going to see the Senate probably trying to restore the bill to its original format. So again, property taxes, it's going to be a major discussion. There's other proposals out there. From the Senate, they're sending their bills to the House. The bill that's going to be in the House now is kind of the current program, the Mill Levy Reduction Grant Program, which is a 75 mill buy down. And then on top of that is a reduction based on a property tax credit for residential property owners on their primary residence. And that's not quite as generous a program as the governor's proposal. And the other, I think, major issue for that particular idea is that it's not going to provide additional tax relief to commercial or agricultural property owners. It's just that additional pieces for primary residence owners.
How much does the governor's proposal increase the state's obligation in spending?
Well, I don't know in terms of education spending.
Yes. I mean, overall, if obviously there's going to be a big chunk the state now is going to have to subsidize education funding, and it's going to be consistent. He says we can afford this, but by how much?
Chris, I don't have those figures with me, but obviously, I mean, the whole goal is to try, through the governor's proposal, is to increase the state's contribution to education funding. Right now, the state is spending about 70% or is covering about 70% of education funding. The governor's proposal would increase that closer to an 80%. So, obviously that's going to be a bigger commitment of state resources towards education funding.
Here's my challenge, and help me if I'm missing something there, but this just seems to me like it's a shell game. Now, here we are talking about property tax relief, and yet all we're really doing is taking state tax dollars, still taxes being paid by North Dakotans, and supplementing the local political subdivisions, which our tax dollars are going to anyway. So to me, it's a shell game. We're just using tax dollars to help subsidize tax dollars. Either way, it's not true relief for North Dakotans.
Well, but the taxpayer is seeing savings in their property tax bill.
That's not necessarily accurate. Well, some people are and a lot of people aren't.
But let me just point out that when I say savings, if you didn't have these programs in place, your property tax bill would be about 19 to 20%
That's like
higher.
Baseline budgeting. That's like the federal government right now going, yeah, we're cutting, but really we're only going to spend 3% more rather than 5% more. It's not really a cut. It's not really a savings.
But again, I think that what the current program does, what the governor's program would do, is to, again, save the taxpayer additional property tax dollars. That doesn't necessarily mean because of valuation increases or mill levies going up from other political subdivisions like cities and counties that you're not going to see an increase in your property tax bill. But without these programs, you'd be paying more in your property tax. And I think that that's what's key. And some of the proposals that are also out there is to make sure that taxpayers know that the state is helping to save them money by providing this kind of relief. And there's some proposals out there to say, you know, on the property tax statement, it should show that the state is paying this much of your property tax bill. In the current program, that's about 19%. With Governor Dalrymple's plan and some of the other proposals, it would be up to about 35%. People don't know that, and I think that's what's another part that's very important for this legislative session to deal with, is make sure that taxpayers understand that portion of their bill is being paid for by the state.
And Andy Peterson, the president of the North Dakota Chamber, is saying, hey, we want more transparency and people should know what's being supplemented. So it sounds like you obviously agree with that.
I agree with that. The other thing, and there are other proposals too about local government spending. I mean, that's a part of this, accountability at the local level. And so the House sent over to the Senate 2 bills that provide spending caps at the local level. One is a 3% cap. It's a very simplified 3% cap based on what a political subdivision spent last year. The other is a 3% cap, but you can go up to a 6% cap if you have a public hearing and notice that public hearing. You're going to see probably something come out of this legislature to provide some kind of accountability piece at the local level as a part of this overall mix.
But isn't that what votes do? I mean, shouldn't we have the accountability by voting people in and out? I want to move on to one more other thing. Hypothetically, all right, hypothetically, obviously you've got great expertise in taxes. You're the king of North Dakota for a day. What should be done? What would you propose for property tax relief for the state?
Well, I think we're moving in the right direction. I think that, you know, again, the biggest portion of the property tax bill is the school piece of it. I think the governor's on the right track. There still has to be, I think, a few things worked out. I think that's the relief piece of it. We increase state funding for education. We also lower property taxes as a result. But then you have to have some kind of a piece that holds the locals in check. The governor's proposal, obviously, which would increase school funding, does put for a new cap, a new school cap, but we need some of those similar kinds of caps, I think, at the local level of the city, county, and some of the other political subdivisions. And that's why I think that some of these other cap proposals probably are going to see you know, something coming out of this legislative
But the other
session.
issue that you're not touching upon, and I don't see a lot of people talking about, is we all know appraisals are going up in the state. More and more people are moving in. Real estate's going to continue to rise. How do you mitigate that? We'll talk about that next time. We're out of time. But as always, thanks for being here. Great to have you on. We appreciate it very much,
Chris.
And please, you know, stick around. We got a lot more coming up. Let us know your thoughts on some of these property tax proposals that are coming down the pipeline. What do you anticipate coming out of this legislative session? As always, please join our conversation. Go to the website,